Blog Talk Radio.
Oh, 3 days in a row of doing these, and finally, I didn't jump in before the buzzer.
Hello.
Hey, there she is. It's Rebecca Tripp. This is Tom Hayes. How are you, my guest host? How are you doing?
I'm doing just fabulously. How are you?
You sound right up front and clear and all of that, and peppy. I'm getting ready to find Pat's contact so I can give him a call as well. Beautiful day here in Boston. Why don't you talk a little bit while I get things set for the phone call?
Okay. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous out today. We had snow all day yesterday, and now it's up in the 40s. So interesting weather, interesting times we're living in. Everybody's waiting to see how this next week unfolds. I'm sure it's going to be very interesting. But being a light worker, I like to keep myself up in the higher levels of consciousness where it's all good.
Yeah. So, it hasn't been easy, has it?
No, it's challenging times for everybody, but it's interesting times. And I just always expect the outcome to be good. I think, planet Earth is shifting into a higher vibration. We're all going to be more awake than we used to be. I was a Silva Ultramind trainer. That's how I met you. And I'm all about helping people figure out how they can reprogram their subconscious mind for a more positive experience while you're here on planet Earth. Because I really believe that the imagination is the quantum field. It's the God zone. It's
Absolutely.
Where we can rearrange things if we don't like what we're experiencing while we're here. We can always shift our thought and create what we desire.
I love it. And I'm glad you let off with that because that'll be a good thing to discuss. I'm calling Pat now. We'll be just talk about creativity and imagination, especially Pat is one of these phenomenal comedians. Hey, Pat.
Hello.
Hey,
what's up?
Great.
I'm here.
Good. Well, I'd like to introduce you to Rebecca Tripp, a gal that I've known for many years. She's a spiritual healer, a teacher of the Silva Mind Control Method, and one of the people that I first started to talk about the book Outwitting the Devil, which also you are an advocate of. So say hi to Rebecca, and we'll start our show.
Hi,
nice Rebecca. How you doing?
Great,
nice
and I
too.
love that book. That book, Outwitting the Devil, is powerful. I did a series of videos on the different chapters. I really dug into it. Life-changing book.
It's an amazing book. It's a lot of things in it. I was reading that book. I'd read chapters and would pause and wait and just reflect. It was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. And the fact that he didn't dare publish it back in the 30s when he wrote it, it only came out about 12 years ago. But everybody's ready for that kind of information now, I'm hoping.
Oh, it's an amazing book. You get so much out of it, and it's not surprising that they didn't publish it at the time. But I really love the book.
Well, tell us, Pat, what it did for you along your way here.
Well, it helped me get through some personal challenges that I had to go through. I was having problems with my business, and just everything kind of collapsed at the same time. Literally was getting thrown out of my house and had no money, no credit, had nothing. Matter of fact, my truck broke, and I was walking the streets of Haverhill. A friend of mine called me up, and he said, what are you doing? I go, well, I got to walk and try to cash a check. And he said, what are you walking for? I says, my truck's broken. He says, well, what are you going to do? I go, I don't know. I got to walk to the bank. I have no options. And Tom had told me about this book. I read the book, and one of the things that really blew my mind about the book was about kind of overcoming fear, kind of just trying to push it ahead of it. And because of it, I just said that it's going to turn around. Things are going to turn around. I ended up going online, finding a job as a package handler at FedEx, and I was working that part-time. I worked at a warehouse job, and I just worked nonstop and was able to get myself out of the hole, get caught up on rent, back bills, and within a year I got promoted to a management position at FedEx, making a lot more money, and just made a total career change. And a lot of it was because of that book, the concepts and ideals I learned in that book.
Wow. Great story. Yeah.
Yeah,
Fear is the thing that holds us back, don't you think? I mean, you've experienced that.
Absolutely. I always reflect on that book. Even like today, there'll be things that'll be on my mind, and I'm like, don't worry about it. It's going to work itself out. It's part of life, and not to fear, and just do the work. And that's part of the thing in the book. It talks about just doing the work, the things you need to do, and you'll push through. And I think fear holds back so many people, and lack of direction as well. So it's helped me so much.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Pat has told me, Rebecca, one of the things we're having so much fun with this. We've had a couple of days of really, really up stories. Sometimes Rebecca and I will fall into the trap of looking at the insanity that's going on in the world right now. And but the last few days, we've heard personal stories of, in spite of everything that's negative right now, people are doing exactly what you're doing. They're flipping their lives around, their financial situation, their emotional situation, relationship-wise, everything else. Now, Pat, you one of the things that is a thread through all of these we're finding is that people talk about miracles, and you've got a couple of great stories about things that have happened to you. Just we want to let people know that what we're seeing on in the 3D world, and Rebecca and I talk about this all the time, the difference between a 3D world and a fifth-dimensional world, where it's not simply height, width, and length, or tangible things, but there is a jump to the spiritual side. In fact, that's one of the things that Rebecca does. She's a spiritual healer, and she worked for the Christian Science Church, and of course she taught me silver mind control. So why don't you? I'm hoping you come up with if you don't, I'll jog your memory on a miracle you had with your vehicle.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, during when this was all happening, I had this old pickup truck that I was using for my business, and the truck, the transmission started slipping on it. So I went to my mechanic, and he took it for a ride. He took it back, and he says, the truck's gone. It needs a transmission. I said, what's that going to cost me? He's going to be about $3,500. And I says, I don't have $3,500. He goes, well, you have to get a new truck. I go, well, I can't get a new truck either. And he said, well, there's really nothing we can do. So what the truck would do is the truck would not go into overdrive. It would just kind of stay in third gear. So on the highway, it would just be really revving. And I would kind of throw it in D or whatever, sometimes get it to work. Well, it wasn't working. It wasn't doing that anymore. I just would not leave third gear, and it would be impossible to drive it on the highway. And then it was going to I know it would completely die at any time. So I leave the mechanics. I get on the highway. Truck's doing the same thing it's doing. It's going, revving out at 30 miles an hour. I try to throw it in overdrive. It won't go into overdrive. I did it 3 or 4 times. I finally pull over in the breakdown lane, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like having a nervous breakdown in my truck. I says, I don't know what to do. I go, I can't fix my truck. I can't fix the transmission. I have no money. I have no credit. If I don't have a truck, I can't make any money. I had no job at the time. I had nothing. I said, this truck has to keep going because I have to feed my girlfriend, my family. I don't know what to do. And I said, God, you got to help me. I don't know what to do. I just throw my hands up in this. I don't know what to do. And then I stopped, and I turned the truck back on, and I threw the truck in D, and then I go on the highway, and the truck's revving out like normal. And then I said, let me see what happens. I throw it in overdrive, and the truck goes into overdrive. And the truck shifted perfectly. Matter of fact, the truck shifted perfectly for months after that. I never had a problem with the transmission again. So maybe it's a coincidence, but I don't know. I never heard of a transmission fixing itself, but for some reason at that moment it worked fine, and I was able to, get by with the truck working. So I told that story to Tom, and he said, yeah, it's just crazy, and I can't explain it. I went back to talk to my mechanic, told him the story. He said, I never heard of that in my life. And he drove the truck. He says, God, I'm telling you, that tranny was gone. And I said, drive it now. He said, ride it instead of get shifting. There's no problem with it. It seems to be all right. So I can't explain it.
I love it. But, that's what is, when I teach the Silver Ultraminds training, our minds, our consciousness has an impact on machines. We can fix cars. We can fix computers. I've heard many stories like this. But and you surrendered. I love that, because when you finally say, I don't know what the solution is, and you really mean it, that's when the universe can come in and fix it.
Yeah, that must be it, because honestly, at that point, I was at wit's end.
Yeah, and describe some more. One of the things that you and I were talking last year when you were going through hell. You were literally going through hell. You had taken a job that required you to, I couldn't think of anything worse, knock on doors, people's homes, and in all kinds of weather, and especially in these days of people being paranoid, etc. It got to the point where you were not only faced with that challenge, knocking up on doors in the middle of the day and to the evening hours, when people, the last thing they want to do is be disturbed. And you were doing it in neighborhoods, and you had dogs chasing you. You had people calling the police. And you just held the course. I was so proud of you. You would go out, and as painful as it was, you persevered, because at the time you were telling me almost every single day, I'm learning not to be afraid. Before, I would let the fear totally overcome me, but because of that book, I'm pushing through. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, when this time was happening, I was having problems with my business. A friend of mine was working for a solar company, and he said he was making all kinds of money. And I had experienced, cold calling before, so he recruited me for this company. And I went to the company, went there, and I talked to some people, and they were making all kinds of money. And I'm like, this is what I've been waiting for. I said, this is going to be great. I go, I can make, they were talking making, $5,000 to $10,000 commission per sale. They said, oh, you should do a couple sales a month. I'm thinking, I'm going to make a six-figure income in no time. And I was flat broke. Matter of fact, my truck wasn't even registered. I was just driving it with expired tags, and I couldn't even put it on the road. So I said, well, this will be it. I could go, and if I could get one commission check alone, that'll get me out of the hole and get me going again, and I can make this money. And they put me in this town called Topsfield, and they just had us knock it on doors, and it was every stereotype you've ever, heard about. People calling the police on me. I had the police. I used to go register with the police to say I was there, and the police would come every day to check up to see who I was. And I got so frustrated one day. The cop stopped me, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I go, "I do what I do every day. You stop me every day." He says, "Well, we don't know who you are." I go, "You do know who I am. Nothing happens in this town. You come here every day. You find me every day. Why do I register for this town?" I mean, it wasn't just I felt like how minorities feel in the South during the the 50s, like getting stuck. I would drive down the street, and a cruiser would do a 3-point turn and pull me over, and it was like, besides dealing with all this other stuff, was that. And I remember just talking to Tom about this, and I was just losing my mind with this stuff. But the book taught me to just keep, persevering and just working, and I just did the best I could with it.
Yeah, and what did you? It was funny because that organization talked about a lot of the similar things that we talk about that are supposed to be on a higher level, but you learned a couple of lessons that concerning money, the promise of money, but you were doing something that didn't resonate with you.
Well, the lesson I learned from it is that you can't go through life and just do something for the sake of just the money, because it's an empty feeling. And I found that even though I needed the money and wanted the money, the price to pay to get it, I was almost physically ill to go to work every day. to park my truck and to get out and to walk around and deal with people. And I said, after a while, I quit the job. I go, I don't have any options. I don't know what to do, but I can't do this. I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I cannot do it. And I said, even if I was to make the money, I don't want it. And that's when I went online and I ended up getting the job at FedEx. And again, I was working in a warehouse, and it was nothing I anticipated ever doing, but it was like it was guaranteed, so much money per week. And I know I could, get out of the hole with this, get caught up with my rent. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up working. It's a great organization, and they've helped me a lot. And I ended up moving up the ladder. They actually asked me to go. One of the managers encouraged me to go for the promotion, which I got. So, sometimes the disadvantage of things we go through in life lead us to somewhere else. And that's another thing I learned is just that you don't really know where your life is going. You just need to do the work, and it's going to work itself out. Because if you said a year ago I'd be working where I'm working or doing what I'm doing, I would have said, no, there's no way I'll be doing that. So the book has helped me in measurable ways.
Rebecca, any comments about work and love of work and any of that?
Well, I mean, when you teach the Silva course, it's, people are always looking for their purpose, but if you do what you love, that's really your purpose for the time being, because you're not supposed to hate what you're doing and bring that bad energy into it, because then you're miserable. So what good is it? But that's a beautiful lesson that you've learned, is that you'd rather let it go than stick around and be feeling sick to your stomach.
I agree with that as well.
Have you read the book? Have you ever read his other book, Think and Grow Rich? Did you ever read that one too?
I read that a long time ago. Yeah. Yes, I have.
Yeah,
it's a great book.
Too. Yeah. Yeah.
Pat, and now that we've talked about money, can you, if you wish to, relate your story about, at one point, not too long ago, just a few years ago, you were in a position where you had more money in your hand at any time that you would ever thought you would. And then what happened with that experience?
Well, I find with that, I had some money I inherited, and I figured I'm all set, and I just had it stashed away, and I figured the security was in that, and little by little, without realizing it, the money goes quick, and then when the money was gone, it's gone. And I realized that the security is not in money or something in itself. The security in your life is your ability to work and your ability to overcome obstacles. And that's where the power is. And it was weird. When I had this money, I was never, on the surface, you would think I'd be confident, but I really wasn't, because I was always dwelling on it. And I'd say, what happens when I lose this money? What if I spend all this money? And that's actually what happened. What you fear does happen, and the power isn't in the money itself. The power in your life is what you can do, and your way of overcoming fear and obstacles, and your ability to work. And that's where the security is. It's security is in yourself, not in things you get.
Rebecca?
Great message. That great message. I mean, so many people feel really down on their luck right now, and fearful of their future because of the way the world is going. But you're a beautiful example of how you can just rise above it, overcome it. And it's always, you're such an example of someone that's learned, when you go into that higher realm of consciousness, that's where you get the solutions and you take action. Wow, you're doing it all. That's incredible.
Yeah,
thank you. That's
yeah, and it got really ugly there, didn't it, Pat? I mean, there were days when I was starting to doubt whether you were going to come out of it.
Yeah, well, I think it was the days when you're in eviction court and you're standing in front of a judge and you're getting thrown out of your house. It actually was the weirdest thing. I was in the verge of getting evicted, and the reason I didn't get evicted was the judge before that I had met with made a mistake on my agreement, and it was I had paid some money toward my back rent, and she had said, well, you can't evict him, he's paying. But I made a new arrangement with that judge, and because of it, I was able to do it. And it literally I was getting thrown out. It was wintertime, and I was going to be 14 days in the street without any backup plan or no money or no place to live or nothing. I was going to be homeless, like literally living under a bridge. And when I was in court, when I realized that judge, the other judge made a little typographical error, I'm like, that's. Oh.
Are you there?
Yeah, I lost you. So I was off the queue. But again, it went back to like that doesn't usually happen. So I knew that the higher force was going to lead me out of this problem.
That's amazing. And then also one of the epiphanies you had one day in walking, and I think you met some woman who was also walking, an elderly woman, and what you learned from that experience.
Well, one thing I learned from that is, when you really lose pretty much everything, and there's people who've lost a lot more than I have, but I mean, when you are at the bottom, there's only one place to go is up. And I met a person one day who was walking, and I started just talking to this woman, and she was pretty upbeat about life and talking about things. And I'm saying to myself, no matter what happens, it's your attitude and where it's going to lead you. And again, when you're at the bottom, there's only one place to go is back up. And most people have to know that. And you can get yourself out of anything.
Well, you also talked about how you saw all the adversities that happened to you. You saw them as if they hadn't happened to you, if you hadn't been in a position, you started to appreciate life in a way that you never did.
Oh, absolutely. It's like when you go broke and the littlest things you took for granted, you appreciate. It could be anything, and also the things that used to bother me don't bother me anymore. And I'm not. I'm supportive of my friends and people I know. I'm not judgmental on what they do. Get into the catty stuff that people get into, especially with going on social media and things like that. Like that stuff doesn't matter. What matters is your family and people around you and the people that you love, and to do things with them, and everything else. It doesn't matter. Everyone has to focus on, making their own life better and helping other people. And I find also when you help other people, it always comes back to you. So.
Go ahead, Rebecca. I'll let you pick up on that.
Well, I'm curious now. When you reach these terrible bottoming out situations, what was it that got you through getting rid of the fear? Is it your belief that there's a higher power that would take care of things for you? That book specifically, Outwitting the Devil, did you turn to that every time, or was there anything specific that you would do that would get you out of that fearful state?
Kind of what I learned from that is just to figure out what you need to do, step and eliminate a lot of the nonsense in your life and a lot of the fear. And what happens if this happens, whatever, you have to say, I need to do this today. I'm going to work toward this. It doesn't seem like it might not work, but this is working toward getting me out of this hole or through this challenge. And you keep your nose down and do it. And just keep working at it. And after a while, little by little, these little obstacles that were in your way start overcoming, which gives you a confidence in yourself that you can survive in this. And if you say, well, if I could go this far now, I could go this much farther down the road. And you just keep working at it. And I just think, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have any direction, and they just kind of get in a fetal position and they just give up. And you can't. You got to just kind of forge ahead. And I've been fortunate in my life. I got friends and close people that I can vent off of, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, even if you take baby steps, because a lot of people have a vision of this fabulous life they want to live, but to get there, you have to take a lot of baby steps and do what's the next best thing in order to get yourself to that dream life, and that's how you reach it. It sounds like that's what you figured out.
Yeah, and that's a good point you brought up too. A lot of people have a thought in their head of what if they accomplish their goal, that's when they'll be happy. What they don't realize is even if you would accomplish this goal you have, it's not necessary. That life or whatever is not what you think it really is, and you need to be happy every day. You need to work to make yourself happy every day because we have today. We don't know what we have in the future, and we have to sit back. A lot of people have blessings, and they take it for granted. Even your health, to get up. I was at the low point. I have nothing. I go, wait a minute. I can walk. I can see. I can hear. I'm not sick. That's what I said. I have my health. I mean, so let's see what I have, and that's what I have. And just that's what you need to do. There's too many people dwelling on money and goals and things that they think they should have in that way. But just try to make yourself happy.
You're a glass half full guy. You're not the glass half empty person at all. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, that's.
Pat, why don't you talk about? We're all fans of Joe Rogan and listen to his podcast, and you talked about who was the comedian, Kevin, that you listened to?
Oh, Kevin Hart. I listened to Kevin Hart, and it's funny about being a comedian is like sometimes we're not, whatever, he's okay. But I listened to Kevin Hart, and I was very inspired by him. I'm a big fan of his now. He was on the podcast, and he was talking about ways of him changing his life. And I think he read the book and just didn't admit to it. But he was talking about ideas of overcoming fear and all the things that we talk about. And I'm like, I said to Tom, I go, he read this book, but he just ain't saying it. And it just, I was so inspired by it. And also I learned, too, is I listen to podcasts. I listen to things that are positive, inspirational. I listen to people that are successful. And they all have the same common denominator. They worked through adversity, and they got their way through it. And I think your brain is like everything else. If you take in positive energy and positive things from other people, then you get better. If you dwell on negativity and gossip and things that don't help your life, that's what happens.
Well, and another thing
I try to flood my brain with that.
He points out in that book that adversity is natural, and he had so much, Napoleon Hill, but that was what kept him going, overcoming the adversities, and that's what you've been doing. You just keep overcoming them, which is great, very inspiring.
Well, if you listen to anybody that's successful, that's what they've talked about, that the story is a person overcoming adversity. People, I've even in my own experience with business, the people I met that started a business from scratch, from nothing, and they became very successful, are the most humblest, nicest people ever. I remember working, and they'd go like, you knock on doors for a living? I give you credit. I'm going to buy something from you because you work hard. You look like a hard-working guy. I started out like you. I did like you. And those people are they remember. And we always see somebody successful. We think they always were like that. And we don't realize that they started probably from the same place we did.
Right.
Yeah, it's well, again, we've had a wonderful week. You're the third interview this week, and again, there's a recurring theme of these bounce back stories, and you just hit on one a little. I think you mentioned this with Kevin Hart, that and we heard Will Smith talk about this. He said even though Will Smith achieved the status of being a premier actor on the world stage, he found out in all the hard work he did that when he got it, and Jim Carrey talks about this a lot, it wasn't enough. It wasn't the answer. Having wealth and fame wasn't the answer. And Will Smith said it all started. The happiness for him started when he started to do things for others. And you just mentioned that about helping others.
Oh, absolutely. That's what you find. I mean, when you go to a food bank and you need to get food, it humbles you, and then you no longer look at people as winners and losers. Or go, one time I'd be like, well, that guy's a loser. Why he has to go get food at a food bank? When I'm in there at a food bank, that you just start talking to their people, and sometimes you talk to these people. They've had things happen in their life that they didn't anticipate, and they're there, and they're hopefully going to get out of it. So, you learn empathy and things like that. So, it's just the journey's always up and down. We just have to keep forging ahead.
Yeah. How do you picture your future now with all of these tools you have?
I don't really know. I just the tools I've learned how to overcome problems, and I'm kind of going. One thing I learned about the book is you don't really know where you're going. You have a predetermined destination, and just go along for the ride and see what's happened. And that's really where I'm going. And I remember I've talked to you, Tom, about this. I said, if next year you said I'm fishing in Alaska, I'd say maybe. I don't know. We don't know where we're going to be in a year. I don't know, but it's just interesting, and I just do what I learned and just keep go forge ahead, keep going ahead.
Well, you've really come back to. You're doing great about living in the now and just all the appreciation. Rebecca, you want to pick up on that?
Oh, yeah. And, isn't that what all the mystics talk about? When you live in the now, you're not worried about your future anymore, and you're not distressing yourself over your past, because all you have is now. And that's why miracles can happen, because it's like opening up a vortex. You're open to all the good stuff that can come your way because you're not blocking it. We block it when we start worrying. And you talked about fear. I think that's one of the biggest detriments to living a successful life and manifesting, when you get caught up in fear. And we live in a time right now more than ever where I think people need tools to overcome their fear. That's why I would recommend that book, Outwitting the Devil, to everybody.
Yeah, I tell people all the time about that book. I'm like, I just constantly say, you got to read this book. I read this book. Again, like I read chapters and I would stop and reflect on what I just read. It would just blow my mind. We talked about religion. We talked about education and all these different things on how different. And I just it's just a great book. And they should be teaching in schools. I mean, the tools you learn in there it definitely would help young people.
Well, he even said that. He said his desire was that no one should graduate from high school without having read this book. But I don't think it's on their book list.
No, I don't think so. I don't think they'll be putting that on the book list of talking about attacking how education holds people back. But no, it's
Pat, one of the things that you just touched on a little bit, and we've seen all week, is that people decide they have to leave people behind because they're not charging their batteries, they're draining them. And you've made that shift recently yourself.
Oh yeah, I've had friends that we've been friends for years and years, and it's not that I'm saying I don't want to talk to them anymore, but I used to talk to them every day, and when I finally realized that what it would become, it would be their way of putting me down or making me feel bad about themselves, so they make themselves feel better. And I realize now that I don't really need it in my life, so I just have limited time, and I have time I need to focus on my own journey, and I don't have time for these people.
Rebecca, and you
we did hear that from someone else this week, didn't we? Toxic people really can negatively impact us if we let them. And sometimes you just have to say, I don't think I want to be in their presence anymore, or limit it, like you said, because it can be detrimental to our progress.
Pat, anything you
want to say?
a
lot of times we...
Go ahead.
Well, just to add to that, kind of like, sometimes we get caught up in that trap because, they're my family, they're my friends, and, I should understand them. And after a while, it's like, look, I'm not on the planet to fix everybody that doesn't want to be fixed. If someone wants my help or saying, hey, you think I'm being kind of on a line, but these people never seem to do that. So I just kind of just kind of leave them aside, and I find it I'm happier.
Yes, yeah, you
Yeah.
are. And, Pat,
You're right. It's not our job to fix anyone. Everyone's on their own journey, really, and has free will.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Pat, we haven't talked about this, but you've done comedy almost as long as I have. How does your sense of humor help you through all of this?
Well, it's funny. I mean, we're a strange situation that if you said a year ago, well, I've done comedy, probably done 2-3 shows a week consistently for 25 years now, and if you said in a year from now, well, there's going to be an epidemic and there's going to be no comedy, I would say you're crazy. But it was really weird, and it stopped as of like March 18th, and I was able. There's been a couple of shows here and there, but it just kind of stopped, and some of the craziness of the business gave me time to reflect on it and step back a little bit, and just I still do it. I still want to do comedy, but it's not. I have other things I'm trying to do as well. At one time, it's all I really wanted to do, and now I'm finding there's other things I want to do as well as comedy, but it's not the top thing because frankly it just kind of shut down, and we're not in control of it. So.
And you mentioned again, the other day when we spoke, you talked about your appreciation of, even though you didn't become a national comedian or a major headliner, you were just along the way. You were just so grateful of the places you were able to go and the stages you were able to go on. You went out to Hollywood, you went to New York, and you got to hang around those places where the stars were, and you were in the same club, using the same stage, talking to the same audiences, and you were just simply appreciative of that fact.
Well, exactly. I mean, I remember watching. I was always a fan of comedy, and I watched, comics playing certain clubs in New York, and it goes back to like we work a journey. We're doing something. We don't even realize it. And one day I was in New York City, and I just stopped and looked around the room, and I'm like, oh, my God, I'm on the same stage as Eddie Murphy. I'm on the same stage as Richard Pryor. I'm here. I mean, there are pictures on the wall. I'm on this club. And it was like a dream come true. I mean, I said at this point, when I was playing the Laugh Factory in the Comedy Store in L.A., and you see these famous people, Howie Mandel walks in the door to do a guest spot. He goes on before me. I do my spot. He goes up to me, hey, great job, and he walks out. I said, that's it. I've arrived. This is it. I've anything above this is gravy. I've accomplished my dream. Did what I always wanted to do.
Rebecca and I talk about this all the time. How it's almost, again, when we start to connect with the higher self and source, you realize, and I mentioned this yesterday in the interview I did about the golden thread, that somehow, do you ever get the feeling that you were destined to do that there was really no choice about that that was for you to really express yourself as who you are, you went that way?
Oh, yeah, I definitely felt that way. It was something, when I first got into comedy, it was a friend of mine. We were talking one day out of the blue, and he just said, we were just talking ideals. He goes, what would you want to do if you could do anything? I said, I'd like to be a movie star. He goes, well, yeah, what else? He goes, well, I'd like to be a comedian. I think I'd be fun. He goes, you'd be a great comedian. And I said, I wonder how do you become a comedian? He goes, I don't know. I go, I bet you have to go to like these open mic rooms, I would guess. And he goes, yeah, we're having this conference. Neither one of us are in show business, know anything about it. We don't know any comedians, know nothing about it. And I looked in the phone book at the time. That's how long ago this was. And I saw an open mic show, Dick Doherty's comedy shows. It was in Boston. So I called the number on the phone, and I said, I'd like to come on and perform in an amateur show, whatever you call it. And they said, okay, well, come in and they said bring 2 people, and they gave me a date. And I just sat and I didn't. So I made the commitment, and then I'm like, what do I do now? So I sat and wrote some things that I had, what I thought would be funny, and I had everything written on cue cards, and I brought 2 people with me, and I'm reading the cue cards on stage in front of these people. I've never been so nervous in my life and there was about 15 people in the crowd, and these two comedians went up to me after, and they said, "Hey, you did pretty well." They go, "What are you doing Tuesday night?" I says, "I don't know." He said, "Well, I got a show in Boston, in Huntington Ave, called Maxwell Jumps. You want to come do a spot?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I thought, like, that's it. I was like a prodigy, you know. And then I showed up there. There was like 12 people there, and that was the start of my comedy career. I would do all these open mic shows, and just I loved it. It was amazing. So that was it.
Yeah, that's again, Rebecca, you want to make a comment?
Well, it sounds like you've been living a pretty amazing life. I love it. I mean, you've had your ups and downs, but the lessons you're learning are phenomenal. It's incredible. And that's what life is all about. Here we are in this classroom called Planet Earth. We're here to learn. And, you're very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's funny. Go ahead, Tom.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. You were saying something. Go ahead.
No, I was just sitting here with the biggest grin because I don't think I was ever involved with somebody. We were talking every single day. I know I was trying to help you in your business. Well, here, let's talk about this. When your business, which is delivering food to people, quality foods that they can't purchase in the normal grocery store. Talk about your passion for that.
Well, I got involved in this food business. It was probably 20 years ago. I was working in the computer business back then, and I hated it. And I found this ad in the phone book, and went in a company called Horizon Foods. I went in there, and I met the guy running the place, and he reminded me of like this big coach. He was a funny guy, and he recruited me. And what they would do is they give us a truck, and they would have all this, steaks and chicken and seafood, all these things. And we would go through neighborhoods, and they taught us how to cold call with food and all these different crazy stuff we would do. I would walk into a hair salon, and there'd be women, getting their hair done and all this, and I would just say, "Hey, you like good food?" And they'd go, "What?" I go, "I'll be right back." And I'd walk in with 4 or 5 boxes of food, and they go, what are you doing? I go, "No, I want to show you what I got." And they're like, "This is the hair salon." No, this is great. And I would put stuff. There'd be a woman getting her hair done. I'd put the food in boxes next to the chair, and I would start doing an impromptu presentation of what I was doing. I go, "These are fillets, they're triple trim, they're this, that," and they would start watching me, and then they would do it. I go, "No, you do your hair. Just watch, just listen, And I would do it. And I put the boxes down, and they would go, "What's that shrimp?" And I go, "Yeah, it's shrimp." And then they start talking. They go, "What? Can we combine an order?" "Yeah, why don't you all, what do you like? Why don't you all get a box each, and I'll give you a group discount." And I would make a sale. And it was, I did that, and the company ended up closing up many years later, and I went on my own. And it was always a grind to get people to, even the repeats to rebuy. They go, "Oh, we just went to the store, we're all set." Well, then COVID hits. And I had a part-time job besides the FedEx job, which I absolutely hated. And it got so bad, I just said to the guy I work for, I go, "I can't do this anymore. What are you going to do for money? I don't care. I can't do this. I can't work with you. You're a nut. I can't do this." And the phone rang, and 3 people that haven't bought in over a year placed an order for food. It was more money. It was 2 weeks' worth of pay, of commission. So I said, they replaced that job I just left. And when COVID hit, people were calling me that haven't bought in a year, 2 years. They're like, "Are you still in the food business?" "Yeah, we need some food." And I was getting orders left and right out of nowhere. So again, it went back to like when I surrendered that other job, which I had no backup plan. I just said, "I can't do this anymore." And the phone rang when I left the building. Like, I'm driving up the street, my phone rang, and then people haven't bought over a year, and they're like, "I need shrimp, I need salmon, I need some steak," and then the phone rang again, and another order. It was like $10-15 of food. It was like 2 weeks' pay off the bat. Just replace that job, and I couldn't explain that.
Well, and again, sitting on the sidelines as a coach, this would happen every single time. Just as in a situation you mentioned about the transmission, every single time that and one of the things that Rebecca and I talk about every single day, that this whole crisis that we're in is everybody's dark night of the soul, where everything is lost, and out of that, there's this theme that, like the phoenix, you rise. You come up out of the ashes, and you would call me and go, "You won't believe it. Here I got nothing, and this just happened." And we followed a gentleman, I forget his name right now, who made the statement. He says, "If you live a life dedicated to peace, love, and joy, the phone will ring." And how many times has the phone rang for you?
Oh, it's happened many times. Those time I had my truck.
Did we lose you?
And yeah, I'm right here. I had a time when my truck needed tires, and the cords were coming through the tires, and my buddy was at the house, and he goes, "Pat, what's up with your truck?" I go, "I put some air inside." He goes, "Just look at it. You can't drive this truck." I go, "No, I have to. I'm going to go make a sale." He goes, "You can't drive the tire." I go, "I have to go make a sale." So I went, and the sale I made was able to buy the truck tires. I mean, I literally lived like that for the longest time, but I just forged ahead. Like I said, I have to do this. And I went to their house. I didn't have a sale lined up. I just had a feeling that they would buy food. Their name went into my head, and it said, "Go see this woman." And I pulled up and then opened the door, and they said, "Pat, this is the weirdest stuff. I was just thinking of you, and I was about to call you." And they ordered a big order. That happens to me all the time. That's not even uncommon. All the time.
Rebecca, I'll let you comment on that one. A lot of people refer to it as the Holy Spirit, your intuition.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's an expression, adversity is God's opportunity. And I'm thinking, too, about how Napoleon Hill wrote his books during the time of the Great Depression. And they've been bestsellers, ever since they came out. So when you plug into that higher vibration of there's always a solution, you get the answers. And you are living proof of that. I love your stories.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so many people just worry about worrying, and worrying never gets you anywhere. And it says in the book, worrying will not. It says in the Bible, it says everywhere. It will not help you in any way to dwell and worry.
No.
Just do the work.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it takes away your energy. You need all the energy you can muster by being positive and optimistic and expecting good things to happen like you do.
So, Pat, just we'll close this out here in a little bit, but do you believe in a higher power? Do you believe in a higher source? Do you believe you're being guided? Do you trust that?
Oh, absolutely. There's definitely a higher force that's navigating where we're supposed to go. And again, we never know exactly. That's why I always leave myself open to see my life's going in this direction, but I never know where it's going to go after that. But because we don't know, and sometimes 10 years ago I had different goals, and 20 years before that I had different goals, and the higher force went, no, you're not going there. You're going here. This we got plans, and I think when our time is up, I think that's when it all makes sense. That's when it's like a movie. I think your life's a movie, mm-hmm. and you're in certain parts of the movie, and at the end, it's like when you watch a movie at the beginning, you don't understand. At the end of the movie, you're like, oh, now it all ties together. And I think that's where our lives are.
I'll give that one over to you, Rebecca.
I think you've got it. I mean, that's a great description. And I mean, you hear so many people that have those near-death experiences, and that's how they describe it too. And we're not here for very long, but the more we can just enjoy the movie, the better off we are.
Yeah. On that,
this is true.
Anything else you got to say? I think we can close this. This has been another great one. Again, it's so easy to get focused on what the media wants to feed us. And the last 3 days, I'm finding that these things will really resonate, don't you, Rebecca? These are great programs.
Oh, absolutely. People need to hear stories like this right now. I mean, they need them more than ever because there's an awful lot of sad people out there. All you got to do is take a look at Facebook or something and see how stressed out they are.
Yeah, and here, with all the people that we've talked to, there's this recurring theme of the adversity, of being against it, of despair, and from that comes some miracle somewhere, and they follow the principles, and that's the thing. And what I like about this is it's not just you and I sitting on a program theorizing and referring to books and recounting from our experiences, and people can say, oh wow, but we're just finding people like Pat and then the other individuals we talked to this week that come out and give us real case studies, so that this is it. Pat, of all of one of the people we heard from this week was, I think, in easily the same dire straits that you were, and it's just phenomenal when the shift that people start to see when they just start to implement a few of the simple things like shifting who they hang around with, shifting their attitude, and then all of a sudden there's a gateway, and the universe, your source, whatever, God, comes along and goes, oh yeah, okay, now Rebecca, you just said it, you're not blocked anymore. When you're not blocked, you create the flow that's already always been there, now has a chance. It's like that log jam. The log jam's gone, and now the river starts flowing.
Right. Surrendering, and allowing it to happen. And you're a beautiful example of that.
Great.
Well, I think, too, it's funny, we talk about our bodies, and everybody's focusing on, nutrition, what you eat, and how important that is. If you eat good food, you get good results, you get good health. We never talk about our brain, and if your brain is ingesting good information and things that are helpful, and you're around positive people and doing positive things to help your life, that's what's going to enrich your brain. If it's full of watching negativity on the news and what's craziness going on in politics and wars and that, if you constantly ingest that in your brain, how's that going to help you? It's not. So
right.
That's another thing too. Just making sure you're trying to you set a goal for yourself on how you're trying to help your life, and what helps me is by listening to people that are successful people that said, I know exactly what we've gone through. I've been down here, but I do this, I do that, and this is how I live my life. And if I try to just emulate some of the principles that they do in my own life, and I find it works.
Well, I have one question. Are you happy?
I'm very happy. Yeah, I'm happy because I got a lot of blessings in my life. I got my girlfriend with me, her family. They treat me. I'm part of their family. Matter of fact, they're all in my house right now, and I see what's important. Making their lives happy. If I can help those kids have a better life, because that's what I'm here for. Try to help them, and then it goes to the next generation, goes from there, and that's what gets me going.
Beautiful. That's all I have.
Nice.
You got anything else?
No, I think it's a wonderful message. I can't wait to listen to it again, and you're very inspiring. I love it.
Pat, you got anything
thank you.
to start off with? Go ahead.
No, I just want to thank you for calling me, and thank you, Rebecca, for meeting you. And this is fantastic, and I love what you're doing, Tom. Trying to get people to spread the word on how their life gets better, and it's going to help a lot of people. I think it's making a big impact.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on, and thanks for being a friend, and you're a case study. I mean, I just walked you every day. I felt like that. I felt like Belichick watching Tom Brady in a tough game and just saying, you're going to do this, Pat, and when you see your word, we talked about the fact that you can't save everybody, but every once in a while you meet a lot. I have so many people that come back to me in life and say, thank you for changing my life. And I tell them, no, you don't understand. I tell this to everybody every chance I can. And, like Jesus said in the Bible, you throw the seed out and some of it ends on a rock, and some of it ends on thorns. And then some of it ends on a barren land, on sand. But then every once in a while, one or two seeds will fall on fertile ground. And so you have to thank, I appreciate the thanks, but you have to thank yourself for being the one that stopped and listened, digested it, and then went to work.
Well, it's funny, like we were talking about that. I mean, I noticed in your own life, you had the same experiences where a year and a half ago, your life was going in a different direction, and then you end up meeting this great gal, and it changed your life. You have a totally different life that you had no idea you would be experiencing right now. You've probably never been happier. And same with you. You surrendered. You met this girl like by accident almost. It just happened to come upon your life.
Exactly.
So you're right. You live it as well.
As staying open. All right. I think we can end it. If anybody's got any last words, go ahead.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you. And I loved meeting you. Can't wait to listen to it again.
Thank you. Thank you as well. I appreciate your time for coming.
All right. Keep up the good work and have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
All right. See you guys later. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for listening. I hope that you're having as much fun as we are with these. I've known in the past couple of days it's made a huge shift in my life. But, Rebecca, how about you?
Oh, absolutely. I love meeting people that are turning their lives around in miraculous ways.
Yeah.
The supernatural is natural. We're proving it.
Exactly. And boy, we, the two words that seem to keep coming up is being grateful and not feeling like a victim. And boy, folks, well, first of all, if you're listening to this, you're attracted to the messages that we're hearing here. And don't fall into that temptation where a lot of people, it's just, I don't know. Maybe someday I'll write a book about, I think the trick to all of this is appreciation, because the more I appreciate it, the more great things I seem to get. How do you feel about it?
Absolutely. It's called being in the flow. When you're in the flow, you just keep it going. And if you reach a roadblock, you learn how to redirect yourself and listen. It's all about listening, too.
Well, Pat didn't cut his phone off, so we're hearing his truck. And he's on his... So anyway, thanks again, folks, and tune in for our next podcast. All right, good day.
Great.
All right, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Rebecca.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I don't know. Bye.